now the defense stopped the other
I
teams.
mean, they held them to 0, right?
They held them to 0. So it's like you got to give them credit. But I think the most recent, because that Kansas game was probably the toughest loss because now they need 2 out of 3 teams to lose, whereas they control their own destiny. If they could have forced 2 punts, they probably would have won that game.
Right.
Because they were forcing field goal. They were holding the field goal. So I think hopefully, I'd like to see him in the Big 12 championship. That because I think if they win, they get in the college football playoff. I think it's just more chaos for the committee to have to deal with. Because I want the committee to deal with all the smoke they have to deal with.
Right.
Because I want to hear the BS. I want to hear the justifications for this team getting in and these 4 conference teams from the same conference getting. I want to hear all of it. So I need as much BS on their desk as much they can decipher and come out to the public and stand at these podiums and just flat out lie to us. I'm just waiting on that part. I know what's going to happen. It's going to be outrage. If you're a team on the bubble, don't do the camera with all the players in the cafeteria thing. You're going to be disappointed, just like Florida State last year. Don't do it.
All right. So I'm going to give you a couple of stats real quick. And I want you to tell me what you think the final score of this game was.
All right.
All right. So this is Nebraska at Iowa. Here we go. First downs, Nebraska 20, Iowa 5. Total yards, Nebraska 334, Iowa 164. Rushing yards, 144 to 49. Third downs, 8 for 17 for Nebraska, 0 for 10 for Iowa. Time of possession, Nebraska 39-01, Iowa 20-59. What was the score of that game?
I didn't look, so I'm going to just take a wild guess. It seems like outrageous to say Iowa won. That's what I'm going to go with. And I'm going to say they won 20-13.
They won 13-10. And that's with Nebraska starting out with a 10-0 lead. So Nebraska fans, I'm sorry, you got to wait to year 3.
Your Super Bowl was beating Colorado.
But they are going to a bowl game. They won last week, and so they broke the streak.
Bowl games don't count.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They going in there. What up, James? You know what I'm saying? We sitting up in here like Iowa turned the corner this year. You know, they were scoring 30 points in games. They put up 40 burgers, and then here you go, right back to Iowa being Iowa. But the game of the day was probably down in Athens, Georgia. And this is another one of those crazy, moments, right? So the Georgia senior class that is graduating this year has not lost to Florida, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, or Auburn. So all their rivals, they swept over the last 4 years. But it didn't come without controversy. Georgia Tech went up 17-0 last night. Haynes King was out here looking like he watched Cam Newton videos before the game. He was running all over Georgia, making Georgia look like the team that we said, why is this team in the playoff? So, of course, time goes on. The game continues. Then we had the Arrowhead refs come through. It was 4th down and goal. Georgia, incomplete pass, and it was tipped. And they call it pass interference. Then the couple drives later, Haynes King trying to run the clock out, kept the ball, faked it, kept it, got hit in the jaw with a helmet. And so in a normal scenario, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't call it targeting. I'm like, hey, this is football, XYZ. But I see the way the game has emphasized protecting the quarterback. So when I see a quarterback getting hit in his head, hitting the jaw with a helmet, I can't help but say, if that was Carson Beck that had got hit by Georgia Tech. I can't help but say that. And it sucks because I don't want to be that guy, but it just is what it is. Then you go 8 overtimes. All Georgia Tech had to do was hand the ball off to keep playing, but everybody wants to get cute. And Kirby Smart even said it after the game. They out-physicaled us. That was Kirby Smart that said that. That's not 2-5's analysis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that goes to show you that some of these coaches just can't get out of their own way.
You see it at all levels. Like like so I do the announcements. I did the announcements a couple weeks ago for the youth football league that my son was in. They asked me to do the announcements, and I'm up there. And since the playoffs, I'm in the booth. There's a ref that has to work the clock.
Right.
So we're watching one of the games, and the other team, they were young. They were young team. I think they were like 11 and 12-year-olds. But the quarterback had an arm. But they kept throwing go routes to the point where even our team, like our home team, they knew it was like, yo, all they're throwing is go routes. And I'm sitting up in the booth and I'm talking to the coach. I'm like, yo, I think if you just hand it off, they probably get some yards. But they just kept throwing these go routes. It's like, or you throw a post. They were throwing slants and go routes, even on like fourth down. I'm like, yo, just throw it in the middle of the field. The safety was one of the small. He was a good athlete, but he's a smaller kid. You had big wide receivers. I'm like, throw it in the middle of the field because they were just locking on man to man all the way up the field. And it's like you're just hoping that your guy beats him. I'm like, get him in space. But they just kept throwing the same go routes. They just kept throwing. I was like, yo, you guys are just you're calling these plays and you're not giving your team the best chance. Because then they get a sack or they get a bad snap, and I was like 3rd and 20. I'm like, this is youth football. Just pop the run play or throw it short and let's get somebody in space. But it's like, nope, we're throwing these go balls. And they're like, all right, cool. 4th down, go ball, turnover on downs. And he's like, coach, like they just get. Sometimes coaches get in their own way. Like let the players, let the Jimmies and the Joes make the plays. Like you already have your game plan, but let them come to the sideline and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And if you let them try it twice, it's like, hey, these go balls aren't working. Let's try this. But it has to be a back and forth. And I think sometimes coaches just ruin. You can ruin your season because like everyone's clamoring to get to the college football playoff. And then there's a lot of teams that want to play spoilers. I think if you're not in the college football playoff bubble window or whatever the case may be, I think playing spoilers is probably like the best thing you could do. I think your teams love it. It probably keeps guys hired. Like going 7-5, but your 7th win was to knock a rival out of playoff contention. That rings bells in the hallways of your campus. So I think sometimes they're just getting their own way when they have those opportunities.
So how about this? 37 carries, 226 yards. Guess who?
Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty. You know what I mean? He is now 341 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record. Only problem is
Barry do it in.
He did it. That's what I was about to bring up. Barry did it in 12. So this is going to be game number 13 next week for Ashton Jeanty in the Mountain West title game. We're going to see who they're going to play. Colorado State won yesterday, so they're still alive. If UNLV beats Nevada today, we'll get the Boise UNLV rematch. If UNLV goes down, Colorado State slides in.
And then they'll get the bowl game. Yeah. Those records, when it comes like those yardage records, I think it's very tough, especially when you get 2 more games. Like Barry Sanders had 3 or 4 200-yard games that year.
Yeah, he had a 300-yard game too.
Yeah, so it's a little different. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I think it's commendable, obviously, to break a record. But when you get 2 more bites at the apple, it kind of like
right
on it, yeah.
So as it is right now, as it is at this moment right now, this is the 5th best single season rushing mark that has happened in college football history. The only people ahead of Ashton Jeanty, you might know these names: Marcus Allen, Kevin Smith, Melvin Gordon, and Barry Sanders himself. So 341 yards to go. So sidebar, is he the Heisman?
No. I would say no.
Okay.
But I wouldn't argue that you are wrong if you had him as your Heisman because of the pace he's on to break the record, 5th most rushing yards in college football history. I completely understand that piece of it.
Right.
I just think that what Travis Hunter is doing in Colorado is indicative of what I think the Heisman is. Like the Heisman is supposed to be like the most outstanding college football player. I think what he does on both sides of the ball at the level that he's projected to be a top draft pick, top 5
mm-hmm.
at either position. like they're expecting teams to draft him and have him wide receiver cornerback. That's what he's projected at the next level. So what he's doing at this level, it's not like he's just out there getting jet sweeps and just using speed to take to the house. He's high pointing the ball. He has some of the most spectacular catches of this season, to include catches he had last year. But he started off the year with the catch against Colorado State, the catch he had last night, interceptions. It's just like, I think what he's doing on both sides of the ball and I think the spotlight on the school is another thing. He has to perform that way because of the spotlight that rains down on Colorado. Like you said, the stands were packed yesterday. It's just so much, I think, is riding on his shoulders because he's attached to the hip to the Sanders family, and I think to perform at that level every week, even last week against Kansas, he was like on the sideline, like, give me the ball. The next time they gave him the ball on a little bubble screen, he made one guy miss at the line of scrimmage, got a block, and took it to the house. It's just that's something that he does. And people talk like, oh, I saw a Twitter post today because he has 1,036 yards receiving, which is like 7th in NCAA. And the post said, I'm supposed to believe this is the Heisman. I'm like, yeah, he's a cornerback.
Well, he also
had 1,000 yards rushing and 100 tackles. You'd be like, yeah, that dude's doing.
But also, if you look at the people in front of him, and I don't want to do the team thing, you know what I mean? But if you look at the people in front of him and look at the success of their teams, then you understand why he's in the race. So like you got Nick Nash out at San Jose State, Tetaroa McMillan from Arizona, who was supposed to be a Big 12 contender, but they're probably not even going to make a bowl game, so that has to be factored in as well. Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green that nobody saw play. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, Arkansas middle tier SEC team. Ty Felton of Maryland, who probably won't make a bowl game. So when you encapsulate all that and look at it, Travis Hunter impacts winning. And that's the difference between him and the people that are ahead of him. Also, he's one of the best corners in college football. I don't necessarily know, and I won't call him a shutdown corner per se, but he's good enough to get the job done. But when I look at the Thorpe Award, because Deion made the big fuss about how could he not be there for the Thorpe Award, and then you look at the candidates that are, you got Malachi Starks from Georgia, you got Caleb Downs from Ohio State, and you got Jahdae Brown from Texas. I think all three of them are better than Travis Hunter as a defensive back. That doesn't mean that he's a bum. That doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve the praise that he's getting. But I don't think, if you're just looking at it from the standpoint of this guy is a Heisman candidate, he's the likely Heisman candidate, he should be in line for an award at his position. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you look at what these other guys are doing, you're just giving Travis the credit for playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah. But the thing with college football awards, there's 134 programs or 132 eligible programs. To narrow down to 3 or 4 guys has to be tough, and everybody can't get invited. I'm glad it's only 3 names because it's like, what's the point of having 12 names? It's like
right.
Like 1 to 4, 1 to 3, that range, that's close enough for people to vote on. If you got a guy in there you got 12 guys in there, like kind of the football playoff, 6 through 12 aren't going to match up with 1 through 5. So I understand, like, narrow it down to 3 to make it simple on the voters. But there's so many different awards that feel like they mean the same thing. Like the Davey O'Brien, that's the best quarterback.
Yes.
Right? But Shedeur just won a different best quarterback award.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the year that
you got the Maxwell.
Yeah,
which is like the overall best player.
Max Duggan, he won the Davey O'Brien. And then
Caleb Williams won the Heisman.
Caleb Williams won the Heisman, but I think somebody else won the Maxwell that didn't win the Heisman, but a quarterback won. I think the quarterback won the Maxwell, a different quarterback won the Heisman, and Max Duggan won the best quarterback award.
Right.
Like, so
and it's because there's different people voting on it.
Yeah, but some of them are like the same. I
Like
think
they're
the
media
Maxwell and the
members,
Davy
but it's
O'Brien are
not
in the
the same
same.
people.
They're the
Yeah.
same show. It's like the same award ceremony. It's like I think the Davy O'Brien and Maxwell are given out by the same foundation.
Right.
And, so like stuff like that just kind of confuses me.
But I
Like I
think
said,
that those things mean different things, though. Like so for example, right? Like a lot of people say that Aaron Rodgers is the best thrower of the football, or he makes the way that he throws it, the back shoulder, all that stuff. He has the complete toolkit of quarterback throws. But you wouldn't say that he's one of the best quarterbacks ever, as far as if you were ranking maybe your top 5 to 7. Some people might leave Aaron Rodgers out.
yeah, makes sense. But like they don't give an award for best throw of the football.
Right.
Like if they gave an award, like even with the NFL, the MVP is normally like a quarterback, but offensive player of the year seems to be one of the other skill position players.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is it? Like if I'm the MVP of the league, like I'm Patrick Mahomes, that year he threw over 50 touchdowns. I'm the offensive player of the year also. Like I am the offense. I threw 50 touchdowns. No, that award doesn't go to anybody else. I get the MVP can have some ambiguity to it, but if I threw 50 touchdowns, the dude who ran for 11 is not offensive player of the year. Like I am.
Well, that's what frustrated me last year because I was on board with Christian McCaffrey as the MVP, but he got the Opoi, and it was just kind of like, why? Like, is the Opoi like the makeup award? Like,
it's the makeup award.
We couldn't give you this, so here you are.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of these awards is just like I said, different. If you don't want the same region. Like if it's a foundation based out of New York and they think life stops at the Hudson,
right?
They don't see anybody who plays west of the Mississippi. So all the awards are guys who play either big time LA football, like USC, UCLA, or they play in the SEC, and like that seems to be all their awards. So you need more foundations coming up with awards. You need different voters because if you think about it, how many college football writers at the New York Post or somewhere in DC are writing about Colorado State versus UNLV? Like that game isn't on their radar.
Right.
So you can have a standout stud cornerback that plays in UNLV, but if all the voters are in New York, Maryland, Virginia, and somewhere down south, then all of the players that are going to get recognized are going to be coming from those regions as well.
Right.
Yeah,
and
Deion's a master of, planting that seed. Some people just have the gift of gab. When they ask them about the whole, I'm not going to tell the voters they should vote for it. They should already know. They should already see. I don't have anything for them. They should already know that since week 3. So like the whole time he's saying, I don't have anything to say to them. He's telling them exactly what he thinks in between each statement of not. So it's just a master class in, word usage.
Yeah, that's all it is. And so when you look at this though, these awards, for example, it's just hard because none of them are defined. Like how are you defining Heisman? Like you're saying, like most outstanding player. So to say that, Travis Hunter fits that definition to the T because he's impactful on both sides of the ball in the same ways. When you look at Ashton Jeanty,
in his snap, he's the best player on the field all day long.
Right. And when you look at Ashton Jeanty, the problem is that the conference that he plays in. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act like the Big 12 is murderer's row or something like that. But Ashton Jeanty played against such stalwarts as Wyoming. You know what I mean?
Shout out Josh Allen.
Yeah, shout out to Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like they beat up on Washington State. They beat up Oregon State yesterday. So when you look at it, I mean, not that those two teams are in the Mountain West, but Oregon is the only team of consequence besides UNLV that Boise State played this year. So it's that whole argument we were having last week about the SEC teams. Like you're getting credit for losing to a good team, regardless of who you beat.
Correct.
But Ashton Jeanty is getting credit because he played a good game against the number 1 team. And then everybody else was people that he should step over. Now, granted, you're going to get the argument, if it was that easy, everybody would do it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So that's factual. I ain't
That's
gonna
what I said. Like, and that's why I wouldn't. If somebody said I think Asher Genty's a Heisman, I wouldn't throw Travis Hunter stats at him. I would be like, you make a valid point. But if you said to me Dylan Gabriel's a Heisman, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I'm like, he just plays for the number one team.
He just plays for number one
team. And I still think,
and that used to be the default way.
And from when we had our conversation a few weeks ago, I still think Shedeur should be a part of the conversation. You know what I mean? Cam Ward probably should still be a part of the conversation. You know, but those are the two. Like, those are the two front runners. It's going to be one of those two.
It's just the thing with quarterbacks, like we said, there's probably 5 to 8 quarterbacks with very similar numbers for the top teams. Like Quinn Ewers, I think he missed a couple of games, but if you look at his averages per game, if you look at Will Hyde, Ohio State, Gabriel.
Hell, Kyle McCourt leads the nation in passing right now.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of those guys, they don't.
Ohio State could use him today.
They don't even separate. They don't really separate from each other. So it's like, out of you 5 quarterbacks, all of you are pretty much giving us the same numbers.
Right.
Genty separated himself from the other running backs in the country. Travis Hunter has separated himself from the other athletes in the country. So, like, that's why I think either direction, they're 1 and 2. You can mix in 1, maybe 2 more players, maybe another top tier defensive player, because I think these guys are game changers. Because there's so much space in college football, and it's, you see it when I was playing a video game, I'm like, there's no way this screen pass should go for a touchdown. Even when I was like scoring it, like, there's no way. But then you watch a game and it's like, oh, this happens a lot. Like, you get reminded, like, 1 missed tackle on the open field and this guy's taking it to the house. So having like a top tier defender who's 140 tackles in 12 games, those guys should be recognized as well. Because like I said, the quarterbacks are going to be the same. Your top 5 quarterbacks are going to have around 40 passing touchdowns, 3,000-4,000 yards. They're going to have probably some rushing touchdowns off RPOs. They're normally going to get all of the credit. So the guys who separate themselves, in my opinion, I think those guys deserve more Heisman motivation, more steam, and more Heisman recognition.
And here's some scores of note real quick. So Michigan 10, Ohio State 3 with about 1:40 left in the second quarter. You got Tennessee just tied the game against Vanderbilt with an 86-yard touchdown pass to Dante Thornton. So 17-17.
Big plays is happening.
Yep. Louisville 20, Kentucky nothing. South Carolina and Clemson at halftime 7-7 in the Palmetto Bowl. Winner of that game might be getting in the playoffs, but we'll come back to that. So while we're here, I guess we'll skip over to NFL for a second and just keep it here. Yep. So here we go. It's that time. It's my favorite time of the show.
Mike's about to get in his bag, y'all.
You know what I'm saying? Some full coverage, some straight up. So, of course, yesterday we had some games going on, so I cashed in Minnesota straight up over Wisconsin, and I cashed in Utah +9 at UCF. But let's get to some games today. So today, give me Kennesaw State covering 12 against FIU. Give me Syracuse to cover the 11 against Syracuse. Watch out for the outright upset there. Give me. Huh?
Who was that you said?
Syracuse covering 11 against Miami. Give me Fresno State to cover 9 against UCLA. In the game that I just mentioned the score from, Vandy covering 11 against Tennessee. So those are your full coverages. Here's my actual upsets that I'm picking today. Against my better judgment, give me USC over Notre Dame. Give me Baylor over Kansas. Baylor's up 21-10 right now, headed into halftime. So just to show you that I'm not cherry picking, I had West Virginia over Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is up 28-3 right now. So give me Kansas State winning Farmageddon against Iowa State. So there you go. And then I got a couple more that we're going to get to here in a second. So starting off top, for the first time since 2011, for the first time since Justin Tucker hit the game-winning field goal, we got Texas and Texas A&M. The state is on fire. This is a matchup that should have happened every year. They were acting like the Oklahoma schools, a bunch of bitches that should be having bedlam right now. But, politics, conference realignment, hurt feelings, so on and so forth. But we got the game we deserve.
Better. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, listen, we are going to get an exception to keep our rivalry game. You guys can deal with it. You can dock us points or you can take away a home game, but we're playing our rivalry game every year, in-state rival.
Yeah, just like me. I'm the only one that cares about the border war, Missouri and Kansas. They're going to play next year for the first time since Missouri left the Big 12.